Hi, we're going to talk briefly about conducting a needs assessment, and it's going to require you to think back to Health 315. In Health 315, you wrote about part of a needs assessment and how you would go about doing it, but in this class, we're not going to write about it. You're going to actually conduct a needs assessment. So what is the purpose of a needs assessment? If you think back, the purpose of a needs assessment, and just think of its name, it's to show that there is a need in your community. You're assessing the need, and you're going to show that there's a need for your community. If you think back to Health 315 and what we did, there were two parts to your needs assessment in your grant. It included your first paper on needs assessment and your second paper on community analysis. So what should it do exactly? First, it's going to demonstrate needs at a national level. You can do that with some national goals and standards, which you should always pull from national standards and goals and not your own personal ones. You're going to be able to look at national data on the issue, and you're going to be able to look at national data on your populations or your communities that you're working with. And then it also needs to look at the local level and your specific population. So how do you gather this information? If you think back, at the national level, you use secondary data. Here are some places that are reliable places to get data at the secondary data for national level. You have reliable and peer-reviewed sources. You have the YRBSS, which is the Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance Survey, and other surveys that we can discuss if you need some, for example, the Haynes survey. Also, you have the Centers for Disease Control. You have the National Institutes of Health. You have the agencies that are related to your topic. So if you were going to do heart disease, you have the Heart Association. If you were going to do a type of cancer, you have the Cancer Society. So remember, you have agencies related to the topic that you're going to do. You also have the national journal that's called Morbidity and Mortality Weekly that has a tremendous amount of data. And you also can find articles on programming that will talk about national data. The next thing that is important, if you think back to Health 315, is you had to have data for your local community. So you need to find secondary data and primary data for the local community if you conduct a needs assessment correctly. Some places that you can find secondary data for your population would be the health department, a university's health center, agencies with local data. And again, depending on what your topic is, your agencies might vary. There are also some national surveys from the Centers for Disease Control that you can get to local data. You may not be able to get to a specific zip code, but you'll definitely be able to get to the state level and possibly county, city level. So that's the secondary data for your population. The next thing is you need primary data. And if you think back to Health 315 and you review your text, primary data are data that you collect yourself. So if you do a needs assessment thoroughly, not only do you have secondary data on your population, but you also have primary data. A few ways that are in your textbook, and there's many more that you need to research and look up. You have interviews, surveys, focus groups. Think back to Health 315. Look in your textbooks and think about all the ways that you could possibly collect data directly from your population or from a portion of your population. So that concludes the slide presentation. When you come to class, during the next class session when we're together, your groups will be working on identifying places to find these types of data.